Have you ever felt like you were waiting endlessly for a promise to be fulfilled? I'm Luke from Little Big Things, and today is day 62 of our Read the Bible in a Year plan. We're about to dive into a powerful story of God's promises made and kept. Let's see how the Bible speaks to our deepest longings and reassures us of God's unwavering commitment to His promises to us today. Joshua chapter 18. The whole assembly of the Israelites gathered at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there. The country was brought under their control, but there were still 7 Israelite tribes who had not yet received their inheritance. So Joshua said to the Israelites, "How long will you wait before you begin to take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your ancestors, has given you? Appoint 3 men from each tribe. I will send them out to make a survey of the land and to write a description of it according to the inheritance of each. Then they will return to me. You are to divide the land into 7 parts. Judah is to remain in its territory on the south, and the tribes of Joseph in their territory on the north. After you have written descriptions of the 7 parts of the land, bring them here to me, and I will cast lots for you in the presence of the Lord our God. The Levites, however, do not get a portion among you, because the priestly service of the Lord is their inheritance. And Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have already received their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan. Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave it to them." As the men started on their way to map out the land, Joshua instructed them, "Go and make a survey of the land and write a description of it. Then return to me, and I will cast lots for you here at Shiloh in the presence of the Lord." So the men left and went through the land. They wrote its description on a scroll, town by town, in 7 parts, and returned to Joshua in the camp at Shiloh. Joshua then cast lots for them in Shiloh in the presence of the Lord, and there he distributed the land to the Israelites according to their tribal divisions. The first lot came up for the tribe of Benjamin according to its clans. Their allotted territory lay between the tribes of Judah and Joseph. On the north side, their boundary began at the Jordan, passed the northern slope of Jericho, and headed west into the hill country, coming out at the wilderness of Beth-aven. From there, it crossed to the south slope of Luz, that is Bethel, and went down to Atroth-Adar on the hill south of lower Beth-horon. From the hill facing Beth-horon on the south, the boundary turned south along the western side and came out at Kiriath-baal, that is Kiriath-jearim, a town of the people of Judah. This was the western side. The southern side began at the outskirts of Kiriath-jearim on the west, and the boundary came out at the spring of the waters of Nephtoah. The boundary went down to the foot of the hill facing the valley of Ben-Hinnom, north of the valley of Rephaim. It continued down the Hinnom Valley along the southern slope of the Jebusite city, and so to En-Rogel. It curved north, went to En-Shemesh, continued to Geliloth, which faces the pass of Adumim, and ran down to the stone of Bohan, son of Reuben. It continued to the northern slope of Beth-araba and on down into the Arabah. It then went to the northern slope of Beth-hoglah and came out at the northern bay of the Dead Sea, at the mouth of the Jordan in the south. This was the southern boundary. The Jordan formed the boundary on the eastern side. These were the boundaries that marked out the inheritance of the clans of Benjamin on all sides. The tribe of Benjamin, according to its clans, had the following towns: Jericho, Beth-hoglah, Emek-keziz, Beth-araba, Zemaraim, Bethel, Aviv, Pera, Ophrah, Kepher-ammoni, Ophni, and Geba, 12 towns and their villages. Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mizpah, Kephirah, Moza, Rechem, Irpeel, Terolah, Zelah, Haleph, the Jebusite city, that is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath, 14 towns and their villages. This was the inheritance of Benjamin for its clans. Joshua chapter 19. The second lot came out for the tribe of Simeon according to its clans. Their inheritance lay within the territory of Judah. It included Beersheba or Sheba, Moladah, Hazar-shual, Bala, Ezem, Eltolad, Bethul, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth-markaboth, Hazar-susah, Beth-lebaoth, and Sharuhin, 13 towns and their villages. Ain, Ramon, Ether, and Ashan, 4 towns and their villages, and all the villages around these towns as far as Baalath-beer, Ramah in the Negev. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the Simeonites, according to its clans. The inheritance of the Simeonites was taken from the share of Judah, because Judah's portion was more than they needed. So the Simeonites received their inheritance within the territory of Judah. The third lot came up for Zebulun, according to its clans. The boundary of their inheritance went as far as Sarid. Going west, it ran to Merilah, touched Dabbesheth, and extended to the ravine near Jokneam. It turned east from Sarid toward the sunrise to the territory of Kisloth-Tabor, and went on to Dabereth and up to Japhia. Then it continued eastward to Gath-Hepher and Eth-Kazin. It came out at Ramon and turned toward Neah. There the boundary went around on the north to Hananoth and ended at the valley of Iphta-El. Included were Katath, Nahalel, Shimron, Idalah, and Bethlehem. These were 12 towns and their villages. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of Zebulun, according to its clans. The fourth lot came out for Issachar, according to its clans. Their territory included Jezreel, Kesulath, Shunem, Hapharaim, Shion, Anaharath, Rabbith, Kishion, Ebez, Remeth, and Ganim, and Haddah, and Beth-Pezez. The boundary touched Tabor, Shehuzimah, and Beth-Shemesh, and ended at the Jordan. There were 16 towns and their villages. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Issachar, according to its clans. The fifth lot came out for the tribe of Asher, according to its clans. Their territory included Helkath, Hali, Beten, Akshaph, Alamelech, Amad, and Mishal. On the west, the boundary touched Carmel and Shahor-Libnath. It then turned east toward Beth-Dagon, touched Zebulun and the valley of Iphta-El, and went north to Beth-Emek and Neel, passing Kabul on the left. It went to Abdon, Rehob, Hemon, and Cana, as far as Greater Sidon. The boundary then turned back towards Ramah and went to the fortified city of Tyre, turned toward Hosa, and came out at the Mediterranean Sea in the region of Akzib, Umah, Aphek, and Rehob. There were 22 towns and their villages. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Asher, according to its clans. The sixth lot came out for Naphtali, according to its clans. Their boundary went from Haleph and the large tree in Zananim, passing Adami-Nekeb and Jabneel to Lakum, and ending at the Jordan. The boundary ran west through Aznoth-Tabor and came out at Hakak. It touched Zebulun on the south, Asher on the west, and the Jordan on the east. The fortified towns were Ziddim, Zer, Hamath, Rakath, Kinnereth, Adamah, Ramah, Hazor, Kadesh, Edrei, En Hazor, Iron, Migdal-El, Horam, Beth-Anath, and Beth-Shemesh. There were 19 towns and their villages. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Naphtali, according to its clans. The seventh lot came out for the tribe of Dan, according to its clans. The territory of their inheritance included Zorah, Eshtaol, Ir-Shemesh, Shalebin, Aijalon, Ithla, Elon, Timnah, Ekron, Eltekah, Zibethon, Baalath, Jehud, Beni-Berek, Gath-Ramon, Mejarkan, and Rakan, with the area facing Joppa. When the territory of the Danites was lost to them, they went up and attacked Leshem, took it, put it to the sword, and occupied it. They settled in Leshem and named it Dan after their ancestor. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Dan, according to its clans. When they had finished dividing the land into its allotted portions, the Israelites gave Joshua the son of Nun an inheritance among them, as the Lord commanded. They gave him the town he asked for, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim, and he built up the town and settled there. These are the territories that Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of the tribal clans of Israel assigned by lot at Shiloh in the presence of the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And so they finished dividing the land. Joshua chapter 20. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Tell the Israelites to designate the cities of refuge as I instructed you through Moses, so that anyone who kills a person accidentally and unintentionally may flee there and find protection from the avenger of blood. When they flee to one of these cities, they are to stand in the entrance to the city gate and state their case before the elders of that city. Then the elders are to admit the fugitive into their city and provide a place to live among them. If the avenger of blood comes in pursuit, the elders must not surrender the fugitive because the fugitive killed their neighbor unintentionally and without malice aforethought. They are to stay in that city until they have stood trial before the assembly and until the death of the high priest who is serving at that time. Then they may go back to their own home in the town from which they fled. So they set apart Kadesh in Galilee, in the hill country of Naphtali, Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. East of the Jordan, on the other side from Jericho, they designated Bezer in the wilderness on the plateau in the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead in the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan in the tribe of Manasseh. Any of the Israelites or any foreigner residing among them who killed someone accidentally could flee to these designated cities and not be killed by the avenger of blood prior to standing trial before the assembly. Joshua chapter 21. Now the family heads of the Levites approached Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of the other tribal families of Israel at Shiloh in Canaan, and said to them, The Lord commanded through Moses that you give us towns to live in with pasture lands for our livestock. So as the Lord had commanded, the Israelites gave the Levites the following towns and pasture lands out of their own inheritance. The first lot came out for the Kohathites, according to their clans. The Levites who were descendants of Aaron the priest were allotted 13 towns from the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. The rest of Kohath's descendants were allotted 10 towns from the clans of the tribes of Ephraim, Dan, and half of Manasseh. The descendants of Gershon were allotted 13 towns from the clans of the tribes of Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and the half-tribe of Manasseh and Bashan. The descendants of Merari, according to their clans, received 12 towns from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun. So the Israelites allotted to the Levites these towns and their pasture lands, as the Lord had commanded through Moses. From the tribes of Judah and Simeon, they allotted the following towns by name. These towns were assigned to the descendants of Aaron, who were of the Kohathite clans of the Levites, because the first lot fell to them. They gave them Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, with its surrounding pasture land in the hill country of Judah. Arba was the forefather of Anak. But the fields and villages around the city they had given to Caleb son of Jephunneh as his possession. So to the descendants of Aaron the priest they gave Hebron, a city of refuge for one accused of murder, Libnah, Jatir, Eshtemoa, Holon, Debir, Ain, Jutta, and Beth Shemesh, together with their pasture lands, 9 towns from these 2 tribes. And from the tribe of Benjamin they gave them Gibeon, Geba, Anathoth, and Almon, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. The total number of towns for the priests, the descendants of Aaron, came to 13, together with their pasture lands. The rest of the Kohathite clans of the Levites were allotted towns from the tribe of Ephraim. In the hill country of Ephraim they were given Shechem, a city of refuge for one accused of murder, and Gezer, Kibzaim, and Beth Horon, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. Also from the tribe of Dan they received Eltekeh, Gibbethon, Aijalon, and Gath-Rimmon, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From half the tribe of Manasseh they received Tanakh and Gath-Rimmon, together with their pasture lands, 2 towns. All these 10 towns and their pasture lands were given to the rest of the Kohathite clans. The Levite clans of the Gershonites were given, from the half-tribe of Manasseh, Golan and Bashan, a city of refuge for one accused of murder, and Be-Eshtera, together with their pasture lands, 2 towns. From the tribe of Issachar, Kishion, Daberath, Jarmuth, and En-Ganim, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From the tribe of Asher, Mishal, Abdon, Helkath, and Rehob, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From the tribe of Naphtali, Kadesh in Galilee, a city of refuge for one accused of murder, Hamath-dor, and Kartan, together with their pasture lands, 3 towns. The total number of towns of the Gershonite clans came to 13, together with their pasture lands. The Merarite clans, the rest of the Levites, were given, from the tribe of Zebulun, Jokneam, Karta, Dimnah, and Nahalel, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From the tribe of Reuben, Bezer, Jahaz, Kedemoth, and Mephath, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From the tribe of Gad, Ramoth and Gilead, a city of refuge for one accused of murder, Mahanaim, Heshbon, and Jazer, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns in all. The total number of towns allotted to the Merarite clans, who were the rest of the Levites, came to 12. The towns of the Levites in the territory held by the Israelites were 48 in all, together with their pasture lands. Each of these towns had pasture lands surrounding it. This was true for all these towns. So the Lord gave Israel all the land he had sworn to give their ancestors, and they took possession of it and settled there. The Lord gave them rest on every side, just as he has sworn to their ancestors. Not one of their enemies withstood them. The Lord gave all their enemies into their hands. Not one of all the Lord's good promises to Israel failed. Every one was fulfilled. Acts 13, verses 16 through 20. Standing up, Paul motioned with his hand and said, "Fellow Israelites and you Gentiles who worship God, listen to me. The God of the people of Israel chose our ancestors. He made the people prosper during their stay in Egypt. With mighty power, he led them out of that country. For about 40 years, he endured their conduct in the wilderness, and he overthrew 7 nations in Canaan, giving their land to his people as their inheritance. All of this took about 450 years. Before our final reading, I hope you'll check out our book, Why Wait to Be Happy. It's about finding joy in God's promises, especially when the enemy is yelling and encouraging us to be unhappy, impatient, or even angry. Visit whywaittobehappy.org to discover God's secrets to defeating the enemy's lies. And now, back to our reading. Psalm 78, verses 54 and 55. And so God brought them to the border of his holy land, to the hill country his right hand had taken. He drove out nations before them and allotted their lands to them as an inheritance. He settled the tribes of Israel in their homes. Imagine finally standing in a land promised you years ago. Finally seeing the land, your land, divided and settled by your people. That's the scene we step into with Joshua. After years of wandering and warfare, the Israelites are at last dividing the promised land among their tribes. It's a joyous moment of fulfillment and a powerful testament to God's faithfulness to his word. In Acts, we see Paul recounting this history, reminding his listeners that it was God who gave Israel their land. It's a needed reminder that our inheritance ultimately comes from God's hand, not our own efforts. Then we read how Psalm 78 echoes this theme, declaring how God drove out nations before them and settled the tribes of Israel in their homes. It's a poetic celebration of God's mighty acts on behalf of his people. So what does this mean for us today? Well, first, it reminds us that God is a promise keeper. Just as he fulfilled his promise to Israel, he remains faithful to us. This encourages us to trust in his timing, even when we're in seasons where we feel like we ourselves are wandering, waiting, or even in some state of warfare, perhaps battling sickness, relational, or financial issues. God is a promise keeper. Secondly, it challenges us to recognize that our inheritance, whether spiritual blessings, life purpose, or material provisions, ultimately comes from God. I have a small placard in my kitchen that reminds me of this, as it succinctly says, God can move your mountains, but don't be surprised if he hands you a shovel. Even though we are called to work diligently, we must remember that it's God who has given us hands to work and minds to think. Our blessings, all of them, are gifts from God. Lastly, it invites us to celebrate and remember God's faithfulness in our own lives. Just as the Israelites could look back and see God's hand in their journey, it is simply good for us to reflect on how God has been faithful to us. And when we are reflecting and praising God for his faithfulness, it's important to be all-weather thankers no matter what has happened or is happening in our lives. I have another little placard that says, God is like the stars. Sometimes you cannot see them, but you know they are always there. Today, let's start a pattern of reflecting on how God has kept His promises in our lives. Let's thank Him for His faithfulness and ask for the strength to trust Him in our seasons of warring, waiting, and wandering. Our God is a promise keeper who has given us all of our blessings. Let's remember all the times we have seen Him alive in our lives and praise Him for keeping His promises. Let me pray for your day. God, we thank You that You are the ultimate waymaker. Even when it seems like we're on a weird, long, winding detour, You are with us every step of the way, guiding, helping us to get to that next step. I pray for my friend who's in that wilderness season or is in the process of going into the promised land. They just feel afraid, they feel frustrated, they feel exhausted. Help them to remember that You are a promise-keeping God. You're faithful and You are going to help them in the right time, in the right way. In Jesus' name, amen. Tomorrow, we're going to read about true worship and serving the Lord. Please share your thoughts in the comments. And if you're ready to continue this adventure through the Bible, hit that subscribe button. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 63.